Hello and welcome to my presentation regarding hybrid teaching. This presentation is based on the content from a hybrid teaching workbook created by the College of DuPage in Illinois. The link to this document can be found in the description below, and AIS West secondary staff received this document via email. So what is hybrid learning? Well, essentially, it's a combination of face-to-face and online teaching all mixed together in a single experience. Half the students will attend classes as normal, on campus obviously, whereas the other half would work independently at home using online technologies. So there are unique opportunities that hybrid can offer, but planning needs to be approached quite carefully. As educators, we should be familiar with not just the strengths of online, but also face-to-face in their own rights and how they can mix into each other over a longer period of time. So what exactly is face-to-face? Well, we're familiar with that context because that's 100% students attending those classes in a traditional classroom, obviously on campus. And technology may or may not be used to enhance the learning experience. Blended class sessions take place in a traditional classroom, but technology is used to facilitate activities, deliver content, and obviously assess our students as well. Hybrid is online and face-to-face instruction, so they're integrated together. But there is substantial amount of seat time in a traditional classroom, and that's substituted with internet-based activities, so working independently from home using the technology that we provide to our students. And online, well, essentially that is almost all instruction and interaction takes place in an online environment, again, using the technologies that we provide for our teaching staff and our students. With fewer in-seat sessions than traditional face-to-face classes, hybrid makes the time that students spend with their teacher far more valuable. So as such, there needs to be greater focus placed upon using that time more purposefully. A traditional classroom, a certain amount of in-seat time might be spent watching videos, reading text, and taking notes. In a hybrid course, students are more often assigned these tasks of content-centered tasks on the online portion of the course, and then spend the face-to-face time more deeply exploring it, analysing it, deconstructing it, and collaborating together to develop new ideas. So this kind of teaching is approach, which many of you are aware of, which is called the flipped classroom model. So that's essentially where students review video lectures and other resources online on their own, but when they come to class, they dig deeper into what they cover. The expectation in a hybrid course of both students and the teacher is that the in-seat time is more actively used. So think of the question, can students do this on their own, alone, or in groups? That becomes a primary consideration in your course planning. So much so that if students come to class only to be given a read and review assignment, that is a wasted opportunity. There's a rapid rise of educational web tools, which focus on user collaboration, the sharing of user-generated content, and social networking. The time that students spend online can go far beyond, passive reading and watching. Students can actively engage with it and with one another. With any course, regardless of the format, there must be appropriate time given to both the introduction of new content as well as the opportunities to engage more deeply with it. The responsibilities and flexibilities that hybrid teaching offers, however, are arguably unmatched by purely online or face-to-face courses. The key to taking full advantage of that potential, it lies with our planning. So what are the benefits of hybrid? So for me, it's flexibility. So I think about how we allocate time, how we use the time, how we teach the courses that we offer, how do we engage students with the material, how do they demonstrate their learning, and how do we assess that learning. We also need to consider how students interact with one another and also how the students interact with the teacher. With face-to-face or online instruction, one format is chosen and used exclusively. So you're essentially cutting off the benefits of both of those. But hybrid learning can offer both in a single experience. So that's one of many positives to take from transitioning into this model. With the online learning component, students can excel with independent exploration, collaboration, improve information and technology literacy, and content mastery. The 21st century skills that we talk about. Students can sit at home, work independently by watching videos. They can read articles again and again to reinforce their conceptual understanding, complete assignments in a time and a place that is best suited to their individual needs. And they can also take additional time in how to craft written dialogue with their teachers. From home or working independently, students who may not be comfortable speaking in a room full of people may be encouraged in their own confidence to contribute online. So essentially, both formats offer unique advantages which can be difficult, if not impossible, to replicate in the other, which is why I feel that combining the two into a single experience can create powerful learning opportunities. A hallmark of any good hybrid course is the seamless integration of online and face-to-face activities. This integration necessitates a thoughtful focus on the student experience so that the students are presented with engaging material and prompted to interact with it in innovative ways. That is not meant to imply that activities need to be fun. The fun is good, but it's not always required. They must be engaging. The possibilities of how students interact with content and with each other are greatly expanded in a hybrid course. Just having them read articles online and then meet to discuss them in class, for example, takes no real advantage of a class format. But engaging students can be challenging in any course. So how do we make it happen in a hybrid? In an article named Blended Learning Strategies for Engagement, educational consultant and Edutopia online editor Andrew Miller offers the following strategies to maximize student engagement. Number one, leverage virtual class meetings and collaborative work. Number one, leverage teachers spend the entire class in a virtual meeting room lecturing and presenting content. These meetings can be recorded and available for students to watch at a later date. So they can be more flexible with learning activity than traditional in-class lecturing. With the potential time savings of having students watch recorded instruction, students can instead problem solve together, collaborate on projects, and use virtual breakout rooms. If you want students to be engaged in the class meetings, it must be meaningful. Collaborative work can be meaningful when students problem solve together, plan, and apply their learning in new contexts. 2. Create the need to know. The key here is an engaging model of learning. We can create authentic projects where students see the relevance and the need to do work, whether the work is online or in the physical classroom. If students are engaged playing a serious game about, for example, viruses and bacteria, then teachers can use the game as a hook to learn content online or offline. So through metacognition and the need to know, activities students buy in to the learning, no matter when and where the learning occurs. 3. Reflect and set goals. Students need to be aware of what they are learning as well as their progress towards meeting the standards. We need to build in moments both as a class and individually to reflect on the learning and set goals. Through these measurable and student-centered goals, students can become agents of their own learning rather than passive recipients. So use reflecting and goal setting both online and offline to create personal connections to the learning and personalised goals. 4. Differentiate instruction through online work. In a hybrid learning classroom, there is often online work that needs to occur. This might be a unit or a specific content or a formative assessment. However, students may or may not need to do all the work in a specific unit. In an effort to individualize instruction, use the online work to meet the individual student needs, whether an extension of learning or work to clarify a misconception. The work that occurs online can be more valuable to students targeted. Students are no longer engaged in uninteresting busy work, but focused, individualised learning. Use tools for mobile learning. If you use the flipped classroom model, for example, there are apps like Khan Academy, BrainPop, and YouTube. These are incredibly useful. Leverage the flexibility of where students can learn and engage them outside of the four classroom walls. Online software and online technology can engage students in a variety of learning activities to support the learning model of a hybrid. The schedule and structure of hybrid courses can vary significantly from one class to another, and this underscores the pedagogical flexibility characteristic of the hybrid model. So a teacher of a hybrid course typically determines what instructional activities should be online and what activities should be face-to-face, depending on learning goals, course objectives, content, and available resources. Similarly, the timetable for face-to-face versus online work can be organised in quite different ways that may reflect not only pedagogical criteria, but also the particular circumstance of the instructor and the students. Planning is key to success for any course, but this is especially true for hybrid. You want to make sure that what you ask of your students in terms of what they do online is a good fit for online, and the same should be true for the face-to-face component as well. But each class session, regardless of the format, should feel like a natural fit for that particular medium. But what students are doing should be done in that particular format. The hardest part of teaching hybrid is figuring out how to integrate the two experiences so that they capitalise and amplify each other. So planning hybrid courses should begin now. Any learning materials or activities that you would like to incorporate from existing online or face-to-face courses should be reviewed and adapted. This must be done in conjunction with a thorough review of your learning objectives. So here we have some questions to consider when it comes to your planning. These questions are not an exhaustive list of questions, but these are the questions I would expect to come up and discussed within your departments and your colleagues. So the answers to these questions and the discussion points that come up, they are going to vary from teacher to teacher, subject to subject, and school level to school level. But they should be discussed with your colleagues, with your department members, with your department head, and your principals as well. So the questions that I have here are: what do you want students to know? What is better suited to online and face-to-face? What types of activities will you use? What type of new learning opportunities will arise? What challenges will appear? How will you address student issues with scheduling their work and time management? How will you divide up grading? What technologies will you use? What will you do to evaluate teacher and student work? To begin planning out a hybrid course, make sure that you have an appropriate amount of time to build and refine it for the planning process and creating appropriate content. As I mentioned earlier, creating a successful hybrid course requires a lot more thought than simply taking half of your existing class sessions and converting them into online activities. So what I have here is a step-by-step guide which I recommend that you follow. So we'll start with step 1. Start at the foundation. Every course, regardless of format, has a course description, goals, and objectives. These comprise of the overall picture of the course and should drive the course's entire development process from why it exists to what students should be able to know and do by the end of it. Step 2. Plan assessments. Determine what major assessments you will use to allow students to demonstrate mastery of the learning objectives. These should be both the major, so summative assessments, projects, portfolios, etc., as well as the smaller formative ones, homework, class discussions, and so on. You do not need to actually create them. You can simply plan out what they will be and what the students will be asked to do. Taken together, your assessment should address everything in step 1. Step 3, create a course map. So at this point, You're now familiar with the overall goals of your course and how you will be assessing the student learning. Now you can begin laying out how students will get from the beginning of the course to ultimately achieving its end goals. Create a chart, course map, table, etc., which essentially sequences what the units will be and the order they will go in, and what resources and activities you plan to provide along the way within each unit. So you all have existing curriculum maps. That's a good place to start. Step 4, plan activities. Identify activities that capitalize on the strengths of each type of environment, so online or face-to-face, and include those in your course map. Step 5, create and find content. Developing online content is probably the most time-consuming aspect of designing a hybrid course. So plan to carve out the majority of what these things are and the order in which they will go, so that once they're completed, just put them in the appropriate place in the course. You may be able to use or adapt parts of activities and resources that you've previously used in other courses, but if you decide to do this, please be cautious and ensure that it integrates well with the rest of what you are doing. Don't force the foot into something that's the wrong size. Step 6, ensure for quality. At this point, you should have an entire draft of the course complete. Now it needs some editing and refinement. So consider the following. Have faculty colleagues, preferably those who have possibly taught online or hybrid, and ask them to look at your course. Go online, find some quality checklists that apply specifically to hybrid courses, and use them to grade your course. Talk to some of your current students and ask them to give you feedback on your course description and your course. You can also share your plan with your assistant principals and principals. Keep the following tips at hand to make your entire hybrid teaching experience go more smoothly, from planning to building to execution. Tip 1, take it easy. Start the entire course development process as early as possible and produce actual learning units that meet specific learning goals and are relatively easy to manage and grade. Redesign is an incremental process. Try not to include too many activities at first. Start small and build on it one piece at a time. Experiment and learn as you go. Do not be afraid of unfamiliar technologies. Keep technology use simple in order to avoid turning the course into a support nightmare, and gradually add more advanced technology if you think it's a good idea. Please speak to your principals before you move in this direction. Remember that as you increase significantly the number of assignments and opportunities for feedback, you also potentially increase your own workload. Don't burn yourself out. Okay, this needs to be doable for students, but it needs to be doable for teachers as well. Tip 2, focus on design, not technology. So critically re-examine course goals and objectives and consider carefully how they can best be achieved in the hybrid environment. Develop new learning activities that capitalize on the strength of online and face-to-face learning environments. Avoid the common tendency to cover too much material and include too many activities in the redesigned course, resulting in a course and a half. Don't overload the course. Online activities take longer than you think they will. Focus on the integration of the online and face-to-face components. Connecting what occurs in class with what is studied online is critical, so teachers do not end up teaching two parallel but unconnected courses. Review the examples of hybrid courses online and think about different schedules for in-class online work and the implications of those schedules for the learning activities that you have planned. Tip 3, use resources already available. Use subject-specific websites for available content. Have a look at education websites. Use online help resources, such as discussion forums. Tip 2, don't go it alone. Talk with and get advice and feedback. Discuss your problems and progress with colleagues, whether they are using hybrid or not. Get feedback and support from faculty. Tip 5. Manage your students' expectations. Explain and justify the hybrid course format and assignments clearly and repeatedly. Make sure that students understand the equivalence between the amount of work in traditional class and in a hybrid class. Draw your students' attention to special technical needs or particular assignments that may require additional resources. Not all online work can be completed at home. Make all assignments and other course expectations as explicit as possible right from the start. In particular, make sure that the schedule of in-class and online class is clear to students and that due dates are stated explicitly and repeatedly. Identify and develop plans, materials, and activities to help students with technologies and manage challenges that they may encounter. Tip 6. Prepare for anticipated problems. Use simpler technologies to reduce risk and complications. Break down and phase in longer assignments. Provide time management tips for students. Be clear about what students are expected to do and how you will grade them. Consider preparing technology help sheets. Develop a plan for conducting course activities when technology fails. For example, keep backups of your files on your laptop because, as we know, things like email, Google Classroom, these can fail occasionally. Please keep backups. Tip 7. The little things count. Things will occasionally go wrong. Plan carefully and be flexible about making adjustments where needed. Ask for feedback from your students often and take their responses seriously. Don't organise your course too tightly. There's always some slippage, and you need to leave room for any adjustments that you think are necessary. During the course, falling behind or sloppy record keeping can be dangerous. Stay current and keep copies of everything. Set aside time to focus on the online components, including reading students' postings and assignments. How to fail in hybrid. So there are many pitfalls with the implementation of hybrid. So, course and a half syndrome. A common mistake of many first-time educators is to take the syllabus from one familiar face-to-face class and simply add some online assignments. This produces what is sometimes referred to as a course and a half syndrome, where students wind up overwhelmed with the amount of material and work assigned to them, much of it not necessarily adding to the educational effectiveness of the course. Parallel universes. Another problem with simply tackling online activities onto a pre-existing face-to-face course is a lack of integration between the two formats. In such cases, assignments and activities may be topically related, but ultimately do not flow into one another, instead serving as a shorter, disjointed pieces of some vague whole rather than successive markers along a cohesive journey. Limited interaction. It might seem natural to think of hybrid courses in terms of online and face-to-face sessions as separate entities, with the former dedicated to independent work and the latter to collaboration and group interaction. But this needs not be the case. You can have a great deal of student-student and student-instructor interactions take place online with discussion forums, synchronous chat video sessions, and especially collaborative web tools. Underutilised assessment. Even educators who take great advantage of the flexibility of hybrid teaching may yet remain doggedly committed to an assessment plan of semester exams, unit tests, final papers, etc. Not only does this often fail to capture true student learning and growth, it also fails to capitalise on the opportunities inherent to the hybrid format. Frequent low-stake assessments, rapid learning checks, online discussions, collaborative projects, and summative e-portfolios can replace older models and better allow students to demonstrate their learning. Thank you.